Oh, yeah. I'll line up.
Those are your papers,
For anybody.
He's gonna steal your pay. He was trying to steal your pay for course. Thank you, Sean.
Craig. Chief Reed also.
Matt and I were out there with fences. So. Pretty good here. It's really high in
Are you guys doing?
There's a broken down plow and wagon out here. So right now they got a I don't hear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants to do this.
I think it's my primary concern is
How are you?
All this meeting is on Stuart City Council, 10 a.m. Monday, February 10th, 2025. Call to order. Patrick.
Here.
Russell. Here. Dolan.
Here.
Cobba. Here. Morgan. Here. Agenda approval, consent agenda approval of minutes of 1/13/2024 special meeting of 1/27/2025. Approval of financial statements as of 1/31/2025. Approval of bills presented. Approval of liquor license. What I want to do tonight, though, I have our financial advisor calling in at 6:30. So I'm gonna have Corey do some of this agenda starting off, but then at 6:30, we're gonna go to 9, 14, and 15, since the financial advisor will be on the phone. So need a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved. I'll second.
There we go. Patrick,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes.
Cobba,
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Okay, now you can take it.
All right, number 4, Public Works Department, new hire. Since Jim is, he's ill tonight, I'd like to table that until our Thursday meeting, February 30. So he's here to make a presentation on that.
Okay.
Number 5, maintenance of platted street, north, 818 North Main, Steve James.
I'm gonna hand you guys just a few pictures of what this property looked like after the city was supposed to clean up. I want to start off too addressing something, I guess my name was brought up in the meeting a couple months ago. That plot of street is north of my property. I was accused by Dick of blowing my leads on that property. I did blow my front yard over through my hedges. I don't know how many went on the property. The reason I had to do that is because after 2 years, with no help from the city, my ditch finally got fixed. I had no help at all. I had to do all the work, all the calling. I had to do the bidding, get the bids to fix it. That's really not my responsibility. The sewer people tore it up. And I was left there. I mean, I've worked construction 50 years. It's not how things work. Your leader, your people that's responsible for breaking something, fix something, okay? And that's the reason I threw the leaves over there, because I couldn't run my mower over the yard, because it just been seeded and dirt been put on it. I didn't want to run over, smash it down. But if you'd watched a little longer, Dick, I went straight over there and I mulched the leaves for 15 feet to the north, way over on the city property. So they were all mulched up. And if you don't believe me, I got a picture on my phone I can show you. Nice clean strip down the side of that street, or my hedges. So that's that. Okay, I know Greg Irving's been here a lot on that lot. I want to give you a little history on that lot. There is a fence on my side of that. First of all, I found that plotted street by going through old prints and stuff. And I found out it was a plotted street. What I had is some neighbors that had animals, which I didn't bother me a bit, horses, goats, pigs, you name it. Didn't bother me a bit to have. But the problem is the fence wasn't there to keep anything in. So they ended up on my property about as much as they were on there. And I asked them several times to get that fence fixed with no luck. The final deal was a couple goats come out and killed some trees that we just planted. You're talking about several $100s there. So once again, I said something to them, we ain't gonna do it. And that's when I got to snooping around, found it was plotted street. I came to the city council, and then I also found out they were breaking about every code you could break. They had animals, you name it. And I honestly didn't want them to have to get rid of their animals. I just wanted a fence on the other side of the street, okay? That's all I wanted. They wouldn't do that. It ended up, I went to the city council. At that time, we had some real stubborn city councilmen that was totally on their side. I don't know why, but if you knew one of them, you'd understand. But what happened, we found out that they had hired a lawyer. They wanted to buy that plotted street. And the city council told them no. We ended up having to buy a lawyer basically to do what the city should have done with their lawyer. We had a lawyer, Vadell. He wrote one letter to the city council, and they accepted our deal that they had to get their animals off the street. But before then, the city council was trying to change the ordinance, everything they could to keep those animals on that property. And hell, there was pieces in the paper, you name it. It was a big deal. And it's all right in here. I got the letter from the lawyers and everything. My wife made me take notes so I wouldn't ramble too long, which I could do. Like I said, after we hired a lawyer, he sent a letter to the city. Ash would probably remember all this. You have to go to your office to get it. And he was a good one. Wrote one letter, and Bill Bump, that was the city attorney that time, the board asked him, what do we do? And he said, you better approve what Steve wants. He said, are you gonna end up with a big lawsuit? Which I don't know if that would have happened. Okay, that's kind of a short history of the lot. Next, on November 10th, we came to the city council to ask them to clean up that clogged street because it was, as you can see in some of them pictures, it wasn't very good shape. It was in terrible shape, matter of fact. That's what was done on November 2nd. We submitted a referendum form. Is that what I want to say? I've got it here somewhere. Referral form. We submitted a referral form. The city said they would kill the weeds, cut down the trees, remove the ground gravel, seed down. So that was never done either. They come down there through a skid with a skid loader, as you can see on one of those pictures. Basically tore more stuff up in the hill. After that, I talked to Mayor, the mayor anyway, and asked him, can I help start cleaning up that property? And he told me, yeah. So we started out by tearing the fence down. Dick helped me tear the fence out. He's probably still got the fence post. I mentioned probably. You never do anything for nothing. But tore the fence down and I cut trees down, dug out stumps, not with a backhoe, but with my back. Ash came down one day and asked me to stop. Didn't you, Ash? You and Forrest, Cheryl Marks. And I think Mick was probably a part of that too, wasn't he? Telling you.
You had a fight with Mick, yeah.
Yeah, everybody had a fight with Mick. But anyhow, they asked me to stop. And I said, no. I said, the mayor told me, Gene Skelly told me I could do this. So I commenced to put in, I don't know how many hundreds of hours I put on that place over there. I seeded some of it that needed it. I got, so the grass was good. I mowed it. Every week I mowed that, like I mowed my yard. It looked like it looked better than the golf course outside of Ada, because I used to score and hit the golf balls, never lost one. So it looked very, very good. I think.
I apologize for this going off. So,
Whatever.
Pager test only for fire rescue, mental fire, safety fire, this is a test of your pagers.
So anyhow, when I took care of it, and it was for about 10, I'd say at least 10 years I mowed that lot. I had one problem, and that was, there was a big pile of brush right in the middle of the waterway at the bottom part of it. Somebody had cut up some of the trees and threw the brush in the middle of the waterway. And so I asked Dick one day, I said, do you think maybe the city guys could come with their truck and we could load that up and get rid of it so that water would get away? And he did. And I don't know what he told Jim Hendrick, or I didn't even mention Jim's name. Anyhow, Jim got mad. I'll say Jim held it. I was down at the recycling bin. He come around the corner, rolled down his window, and I'll let you use the letters. He said, you keep your F&A off that lot. That's the city's to maintain. And that was the last day I mowed it. Since then, it hasn't been kept up near like it was. There's trees need to be cut down. I think there's probably, I'd say 4 on my end need to be cut down. And Greg, I know, has been here a couple times. And there's stuff on his end that needs to be cut down. And so I guess my thought on it is I don't want Ash to have anything to do with it. I don't want Jim to have anything to do with it. I would like you guys to approve having Greg and I get a bid on taking down what we think needs taken down. And then hire somebody that we think will take care of that lot, mowing it and cleaning it. When I had it, guys, there wasn't a stick that big on that lot. It was all picked up. But there's been some trees dropping some pretty big branches. And on that point too, and I'm gonna ask Ash to fill out something that prove that I'd said it. There's one tree that sits right next to my property, right over the top of my gas barrel. It wasn't there when my gas barrel got put in. My gas barrel's been there 40 years. It's a hickory nut. tree. And it's got some huge branches on it, and it's getting a bunch of holes in it. And if it comes down, some of it's gonna land right on that tank. And like I said, my tank was there first, so I'm not moving in. But anyhow, that's kind of what I came for. First is to let you know that the city guys took care of it first, and then evidently they didn't have the time. So they hired a guy to do it last year and the year before. Quit mowing in August. The grass would get about, I'd say 8, 10, 12 inches high, and then they mow it. You know what grass does when you mow it and lays on the other grass? It kills it. So we just want the property next door is looking like our property does. Clean, neat, mowed, and no sticks or anything on it. Because in reality, it will hurt our property value if it is. And every house up and down our street is kept pretty good. So that's what I'm here for, and I'd like you guys to think about this and see if you would allow Doug and I to get bids from different, from guys that cut trees down, take out the stumps, and then find somebody that will mow it like it's supposed to be mowed and take a little pride in their work. So that's about all I got to say. If you guys want to think it over or look any further, I've got a bunch of pictures here that I can show you. I put in a lot of hours in that place, and I had it looking really nice. And I think Nick could attest to that.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say, but I do want an answer from you guys. Any questions? Yeah.
So you said you want our commission to go get bids. Are you taking care of that then, or are you gonna turn that?
I would come back and tell you what the bids are. I mean, I did it on my ditch, right?
Oh, I don't know. I mean.
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
I took care of the whole thing. I got the bids, called the guys. It took quite a while because by the time somebody get back to me, I called the city engineer twice. He never called me back because that's who Ash told me to call. And I think I came back down and he gave me a number to the company that did the sewer. And I called and I wouldn't get an answer. I kept calling, and finally one day some kid answered. He said, "Yeah, I'm going to take care of it." And we kind of hem hawed around. I said, "Hey, how about if I go get a bid from the company to fix that? Will you honor that?" And he said, "Yeah." But like I said, 2 years. That's a long time. I worked 50 years in construction, about 20 in homes, and about 30 for the White's company in Des Moines. I ran work and everything. And something like that wouldn't even close that. When you broke something, you fixed it. That was that. Or you got sued for a long time. Thank you.
Thanks.
And can we come back to the next meeting and get an answer on if we're gonna be allowed to do this?
March, what's our meeting?
Second Monday.
Second Monday.
That'll give you a month. If you wanna come take a look at the place, call me or whatever, or come and take a look at it. I'll give you a month to decide what to do.
Perfect.
And in a lot of ways, in some stuff I'll say this, that's happened to me from this city lately, is I feel like I'm getting discriminated against because I'm an old man. I am old, but I'm not stupid. And I also feel a little, I don't know what I would say, but I've done a lot of stuff in this town. I started the soccer program over here. I built the soccer fields. And was at that for 30 years. That took up just about all my time. So, and I was in the JCs, and we've done a lot for this town. So it's not like I sat around here all my life and never done it. And I've been here 71 years. So.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. All right. Number 6, Stuart Depot Restoration, Depot Manager, salary contribution. Mrs. Cook?
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the Stuart Depot, as I come every year since Doris appointed me president of the Depot Association. And we are looking at Brenda Dudley's annual salary. She has agreed to hold it again at $10,200, which is what it's been for the past 2 or 3 years. To pay that amount, we, in the past 2 years, have gotten half of the money. Well, 2 years ago it was $5,000, and last year it was $5,200, and from the city. And then we've applied to the hotel motel tax and gotten the other $5,000. Previous to that, the 200 came from other sources from the depot, such as rentals and things. All right, 2 years ago, I think it was Mike Kaba asked that we raise the rental fees a little bit, which we did. It went from $50 to $75 per rental. And that money is used for things that the depot needs. For example, we get some donations from people as far as like memorabilia for the depot and things like that. And Brenda just bought 2 used display cases so that we can display some of the things that we previously didn't have room for. And so we're asking tonight that the city approve $5,200 towards Brenda's salary, and then when it's time to do the hotel motel tax, I will apply for the other $5,000.
I'll make the motion. Motion by Dolly. Second by Morgan. How do you vote? Dolly? Yes. Russell?
Yes.
Cobble?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
And myself, Patrick, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Quick.
Okay. 7, 2025 Main Street marketing proposal, Nate Lester.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
This proposal is pretty much an exact copy of last year's. As far as options of how many videos, the same cost per video. Pretty straightforward. I don't think you'll find anything in there that is gonna be any different than what we talked about really the last 2 years. I guess the piece that I would like to say, I think we've been showing really good numbers with the results that we have. I don't want to jump into Matt's report later, but there's definitely a lull when in the month where we don't have a new video posted, or at least one of our long videos. I would love us to get to a point where we're doing 6 or 8 videos for the year, where we kind of flatten out some of those valleys, at least as far as the engagement and the reach goes. But again, I know that's always kind of the issue. So that's really the only thing I wanted to say. Otherwise, it's all again the same terms. I think the current one would run out in July, whatever, in June. Part of the reason why I'm trying to get ahead of this, last year we ended up having about a 3-month gap where there wasn't one. So we almost had to not really start from scratch, but I would say it's like going to the gym on New Year's, your New Year's resolution. You go all January and then you don't in February and you lose all the momentum that you've built up. So that's, I don't want to get into that kind of rhythm where we do our year contract and then wait 3 more months and then start again, because we're kind of chasing our tail at that point to get back just to make up the lost ground. So that's really my only, I guess, kind of point or addendum to what maybe you don't see in the proposal. Does anybody have any questions for me?
No, I just want to say how things, your videos are spot on. Do appreciate how you use the citizens of Stuart to make your videos and everything. It's local, so that's awesome.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Good for you.
The plan for the next 2, the next one I hope to do, fire, rescue, police kind of overview, talk about some of the programs that Circuit Key does, some of that stuff. And then the 4th one would be then some of our events. And so I hope to get, the scoop the loop, quickly we'll get some Good Egg Days coverage and some of that stuff. Again, like if I know that this is extending past June 30th, it gives a lot more flexibility to some of the videos even in the future, that I know if I can get some footage June 20th or whatever Good Egg Days is, that I'm able to use that beyond June 30th. So, sure, for that.
Question on your engagements. Now, when you post a new video and you see those engagements come, can you tell, are they looking at stuff beyond the video, or is it just?
there are clicks to the website. Again, I don't run on the website. There's a little bit of a gap between what Mike Tiernan does and at least on the analytics side, right?
Okay.
So I can see the Facebook stats essentially. So I know that there's so many clicks maybe to the city website beyond what somebody does once they get there. I really can't tell you.
Okay.
I don't know what services they're looking at, if they're looking at agenda items or whatever.
Thank you.
We need a motion?
We already have this budgeted for.
Yeah, I
Going
usually
into it,
certify
just-
for TIF, we just came ahead of time to, don't have to wait. But yeah, I consider it every year with the TIF certificate.
Okay.
So we're good. Would like a motion.
We do 4 videos, right?
Right now, yes, 4, yeah. So that's, kind of that issue of, we go roughly every 3 months. And then really get into that, first month is good, second month started, and then that third month is kind of fired up. So I would love to go to maybe 6 to shorten that, but again, I know that's not always, and I know that's not necessarily budgeted.
So that's kind of where we're at, is like, do we want to stick with 4 or do we want to do 6? Or 12? There's options.
Thoughts?
I move for
Thoughts?
4.
Well, we got
I'll make a motion for 4, and
Motion
if
for
you want to
4.
discuss any more.
By Mike,
You second, James. Okay, moved and second. How do you vote? Patrick,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Kavah,
Yes.
Morgan. Yes.
thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Hey, Stuart Chamber of Commerce.
Strategic.
Page is up.
Hello,
Hello.
my name is Paige. I'm the Stuart Chamber president. Am I allowed to hand you guys something, or should that have been in the packet earlier? Sorry. All right, so I'm passing out a new initiative of the Stuart Chamber. So over the course of the couple of years that I've been involved in the chamber, I've just recognized that there's a lot of disconnect between all of our organizations in the city of Stuart. And I think the chamber could wear a lot of hats. I'm just not really sure which ones. And so in order to really fine tune our purpose within the community, we hired a third party, and you'll see the packet on the back there. Batten Global is who we hired to do a 3 to 5 year strategic plan for the chamber. So we're taking our funds and throwing out this initiative, but we're trying to make an extra effort to reaching out to other organizations and the city to see how we can partner on some of this stuff and have your guys' input or involvement to help us mold this strategic plan. So if you go into the packet, you'll see what the overall objective is. Come out with a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. And then you'll also see a calendar in there of the timeline. And so we have already started this program with them, and it's supposed to be 8 weeks finalized. So we're hoping to have a final plan to present by April 1st. We got a little behind in January, rolling out the survey. So it starts with community engagement and a survey to collect data. And we have that survey if you were curious about the questions. And then we are also doing mailers and Facebook media to try and get as many community members to participate in the survey. We're not only just doing Stuart community, but we are really trying to expand out into the communities of the district. So Menlo, Dexter, Redfield. We know that Stuart is the hub, but there's other businesses in those communities, and we all go to the same district. So we're trying to really pull in Stuart area, not just Stuart. So my agenda tonight was one to just tell you guys what we're doing, and keep in touch with how the process is going. But two, I would really appreciate if a few of you, all of you, would be open to that workshop that we're supposed to be having. And then, you know, at the resource and partnership development part, if you saw on the calendar. So we'd really like to figure out where we belong, and if there's something that doesn't necessarily fit for the chamber, maybe it's with a different organization or vice versa.
That's great. Some of the questions on that search group, like, yeah, that's pretty nice. Yeah, pretty good. It's good.
It's a very thorough survey. I think we'll have a lot of ideas and opinions that we'll have to pull together, but I guess another hiccup of ours right now is just really getting the word out with the survey. We have plans to partner with the other organizations to try and get that out. We have the mailers. We're gonna do some knocking on some doors, but honestly, if you guys have any resources or something that we should be looking at in order to get the survey out to the community members, we're open. We have done the Stuart Herald, so that's already out there. Again, we're doing social media. We have the postcards. We're gonna stop by the school district and try and hit up all the teachers.
You ever thought about doing a PSA with the radio station?
No? Okay,
Do that?
I'll ask that.
Right. Have you thought about maybe put these postcards like at the library or the post office or anywhere people do business where it's just right there on the counter?
Yes, we're gonna partner with, the local, retail stores, whether it be those
Yeah.
about the post office or library. So we'll do those.
Sure.
Okay.
Very good.
Get the police. So,
Yeah,
when, I'm sorry, that was, when is that meeting that you're talking about?
I don't know yet.
It's not a specific date.
It's not a specific date yet. We're just gathering all our data right now. But I would broadcast it to Sarah, once we do have some dates in mind, if you would be open to showing up and helping us build that.
Sure.
Good.
Any questions?
Before you run off page,
Yeah.
I said I was gonna change the agenda around.
Oh,
Do we wanna go, since
Sure.
you're here, 12, do you wanna talk about that?
Sure.
Then you're done.
okay. Moving on to my personal agenda. My husband and I had put in a, offer on this property. I don't remember the address. I think it's 411 Northeast Second Street. Right now, it just has a garage on the premises but it's coded as residential. So before we move forward with our offer, I just wanted to get your guys' input because as you see in the description that I have highlighted, I don't know it word for word, but it says that due to city code that the garage may or does need to be torn down or a house needs to be on the premise. I don't know word for word.
The only thing Jason said to me was he'd like a timeline, possibly 2 years or whatever. You think you need 3? He just wants something written so they can vote on it, say, okay, 3, because we've had situations where we've given a lot to somebody and said, there's supposed to be nothing gets put on there. But Jason just said he'd like a timeline, a rough timeline.
Well, and here's another thing. You're basically asking for a variance to the code. So this should go to the Board of Adjustments besides us.
Okay.
That's where that would go. And then they'll let you know they can give you a variance to the code.
Is it in the code? Does anybody know the code?
So this is just off the website, the part you got
Mhm.
highlighted green.
Yep,
Um,
so I was asking,
so
do you know
when
what it is in the code?
that, I don't know that, but you know, it says V&K is informed, Margaret Terrence, they would know. Maybe, work with Ash and, or you can get a contact so they can tell you the exact code on it. Cause I'll be honest, I don't know that either.
Who
I
were
see-
you
I see
suggesting that I talk to, Board of
Adjustments.
Adjustments?
Yeah. And Ash, would she work through you to, or I don't know.
He give us a call when the issues of process.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I know you got some zoning regulations on here, but
I
don't
guess, Mayor, I have a hard time giving a timeline because is that being given to anybody else?
I don't know, I have to ask Jason. He just covering that, like I say, you buy it and then 10 years, there's no house on it.
How long's that house been gone from that property and this
It's
garage has
a
been
trailer
sold?
house.
it's a trailer, yeah.
So,
I understand the code of like, you can't put up a shop.
Yeah.
But why hold somebody to the fire to build a house? Like, what if plans change and you resell, like, I guess I have a problem with that.
well, I also have a question on that and it's just for the debate, but I guess my question would be towards the city ourselves. If this garage is still on that property and that trailer's been removed or whatever, why didn't we address this with that current owner then, you know what I mean? So, I don't know on that, so,
We're just passing the buck a little.
right. I guess I don't know where, I have a question on that as well, so, but obviously that was before I was sitting up here, I don't know when it was
And that would
removed.
be, that would go to our code enforcement to
Yes.
address that part.
Yeah,
So we should find out why it hasn't been addressed from that aspect.
mhm.
And because it really should be on the seller to remedy that.
Yeah.
Before you do it. But if they don't, then you would need a variance to whatever specific code is in here. Which, just reading through there real quick, I don't know if these are the right ones or not. So that would be our code guy too, so.
Yeah, we will have issues of process.
Okay, so moving forward, I'm supposed to contact Ash and Sarah.
Yes.
You'll get me in contact with the Board of Adjustments. They will review the code. Do I then,
And the code enforcement too.
and the code enforcement, if there needs to be a variance, that can be approved through them, or do I need to come back to you guys?
No,
That would be
It's already-
through them, right?
board of adjustment.
Guys, what does that take?
Well, it depends on the case. There's no timeline set for every case.
Okay,
But we'll start with the code
Last
person.
warrant.
Well, I just want to point out that the dilemma for Paige is that she's made an offer on this property. And what she's offered, and I'm sorry, yes, the code, the house like anybody else, doesn't own the property. She cannot apply for a variance. She doesn't own the property. It's not for her to apply for a variance. The seller's not gonna apply for a variance. The seller doesn't wanna bring this to your attention because they may well know that they're not in compliance. The tragedy is the garage has some value. Paige has told me that. That was a component for the offer that she made on the property. So it seems like a shame to force the seller to tear down something that has value. There are a lot worse looking buildings in the town of Stuart, easily. So I think at this point, a variance, kudos to Mike Kava, you're exactly right. I don't approve of people bringing every single issue they have in front of the city council right out of the gate. The problem is, Board of Adjustment is quasi judicial, so once they've made a decision, unlike planning and zoning, the appeal doesn't come to you guys. The appeal from Board of Adjustment goes to the district court. And, well, I can tell you, a garage is not worth an appeal to the district court, you know, you're gonna spend more on legal fees than what that garage is worth, not knowing what your outcome is gonna be. So I think what Paige is looking for is a sentiment. Dick has expressed part of that, my opinion to Paige was, as long as the city had a commitment from the new buyer that the plan is to have a single-family residence there, which is what planning and zoning has said should be there. You know, the other choice is to change the zoning, and that's probably not gonna happen, it would be spot zoning. So yeah, I think the solution is, the problem is Paige can't get a variance now. She doesn't own the property. She kind of hates to stick her neck out there not knowing whether or not you're gonna tear the house down. Dick has indicated a 2 to 3 year window. You know, if I were in Paige's shoes, I'm not, but, and I don't represent Paige, I'm speaking here as a loudmouth citizen. I think the best you can give Paige at this point is a sentiment, and 2 to 3 years sounds reasonable to me. Obviously, you know, Paige doesn't know what life's gonna bring 3 years from now, but if circumstances change, then you address it at that point. So, I just wanted to make that point before you tell Paige to come in and spend a lot of time with you, and then turn out she doesn't have. She's got to buy the place before she can do that. But that would be the next step. Come in and apply for that variance, and hopefully the Board of Adjustment would see that, you know, this is something that's going to encourage somebody to build a house on the property. So that's a good thing. Sorry.
Thank you.
That's what you wanted to hear, wasn't it?
Yes, what he said, that's kind of where I'm at, and I have the offer, it's pending. I have to give them an answer by February 18th. That's why I was asking about timeline. And that's fine, I'll try to work with the realtors on the timeline, but I just wanted to give them more of a heads up on our situation, because our offer is contingent of your guys' decision.
Would it be fair to say that if Paige and her husband did purchase the property, we're not gonna be beating down her door, say you need to put a house on that like ASAP, or you need to tear down the garage? I mean, I get
My
that it
biggest
takes
thing
time.
isn't necessarily the house thing, it's making me tear down the
Correct.
thing. That's the only reason why I want it. So if that's the case, then I don't want the lot.
Sure.
Our position's the same, no matter who owns it now, right?
Yeah. Be glad to see a house being put on it if that's your guys' intentions are.
That is our
to get a-
intentions. I just don't know when, I mean, we're finishing little.
Doing a house,
too.
yeah, I get it. Yeah, totally understand. Okay. Do we need a motion on that, Ash?
What?
Oh,
Does anybody remember us when we made an exception on an ordinance here in town? On what happened for 7 years?
No.
So, and nothing against you, okay, it's not to do for the next one. So you can make a motion, I'm not saying that, but just use caution in when you're thinking about this, you know? It technically should go to our code enforcement, and why it hasn't been there, that would be a question that I'd like, why they haven't enforced that for however many years that's been going on. I don't even know, I didn't even know there's a trailer there. You know, I thought the thing was, you know, so I had no idea.
You know, I told our code enforcement guy to work on junk and stuff
Sure.
like that rather than structure and stuff.
And that's,
And then we've lost, you know, one enforcement guy.
Oh, okay.
and then, I guess that's why I asked if we need a motion. I thought it was just more information. I don't think there's anything to vote on though tonight, yeah, I mean, for this, is there?
Oh, okay, well, I thought you were gonna make a motion.
No, that's what I
Oh,
was
you're just
asking.
asking, okay.
Yeah.
And if you did, like I said, I don't, that's fine, you know, this is just, you gotta, I just gonna say, you know, we need to think about where we work. for 70 years.
Oh, yeah,
And
see,
make an exception.
Yeah, you know, you just talking about breaking code violations. You guys have done this 2 or 3 times. I don't know, I'm on the planning and zoning board. And voted on an issue, a couple months ago. The historical people voted no, we voted no. You guys passed. And you broke code by doing it. If you want to look at the code, you want to say what it was, or anything else. You know, you used to talk about you break code for one. There's so many broke codes in this town that you might as well throw away the code. Is what you might as well do. Out even out in the new section, the 2 houses down from you, the 2 houses are breaking codes on where they got their storage buildings. Unless there's a different rule out there. So she went by that lot and house letter.
I think they're under different covenants out there, but
so you just wanna give her your blessing for now?
I guess in my opinion, I just think, I thought it was just more of an informational that she's,
I'm looking for a blessing because I need to know whether to move forward with the offer or not. And if you guys are going to want to look into forcing a code to tear down the building, I don't want to go through with the offer.
and once again, we're in a pickle. What, I mean, yeah.
I put my opinion out there.
Because if I purchase it and then you later decide, yes, it needs to come down, then it's me and not the best situation. I guess my suggestion is that if you don't know and you would need to talk to the Board of Adjustments to see or review the code more, is that something you would have to do and then later come back?
Well, unfortunately, I hate to shoot ourselves in the foot here, but, you know, if the code enforcement was doing their job and the city did their job as well, the building would be tore down and you probably wouldn't be standing here today, because that's what you're after, is the building. So that's where I feel like we're in between a rock and a hard spot.
Just whether
But
you
at some
want to
time,
make me an
sorry.
example or not.
What's that?
It's just whether you want to make me the example or not.
Well, it's not only that, you know, Mr. James did bring up what we did talk about there a few months ago, and it's to the point where, you know, we keep going down this road and not following code, or we put a hard stop to it and we start going by code.
Yep.
That's what the code is there for. Unfortunately, that's not what you want to hear, but I mean, it is what it is, and no matter what our decision is, if that's the way we go with it, you're going to be upset, or we let you slide by, then we put a hard stop to somebody else that walks in here, then they're gonna be upset. It's just never, and you see what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to make an example out of you by no means, but at some point, I think we just need to either let it all slide or stick to the code. There is no in between. And that's my 2 cents.
It was, oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, in your letter, it says Veen came for Margaret Tiernan about this. Do you know when that was? Was this recently?
Yeah, I mean, it just went on the market, not,
So,
Like a
right when
whole-
it went on the market, right?
yep.
I'd like to know.
Right.
what-
Is this a state code you're talking about, or a city ordinance? Is it by state code, or is it something the city has?
It's probably by the city,
It's
just
the
by.
city.
Well, you can rewrite it, I mean, you can make that wording. It may have been written at a time when it made sense, but I don't know if it makes sense today.
Sure, and I don't even know what code it is. You know, I don't know the specific,
Do you have a code book?
not in front of me, no, I don't.
Sounds like it'd be a city ordinance, not a state code.
It is, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. You know, she had supplied a couple of the ordinance in there, but I didn't see anything that said you need to have a house.
And she just wants to buy the property and the garage is there.
Right.
So what's,
Which is what's happening now.
huh?
Which is how it is now, right?
Where she buys the property and tears the garage
So she doesn't.
That she doesn't want to do that.
down. I can't see why you wouldn't let her buy the property.
She can buy the property if she wants to.
I don't see,
Yeah, you know.
I've been several times, I don't ever remember.
Well, see, that's just, yeah, you know,
I've been to see that several times. I don't remember.
Lisa?
Being code.
Might I suggest that I believe you're supposed to go to the variance board, so whatever they say up here is, it's a step further down the road, and if you want, I can help you get the number for one of the people on the variance board.
But she needs to own the property before
Well, that's not my concern. My concern is just check with the variance board first.
That shouldn't be a problem.
That's your question.
Yeah.
Just, yeah,
Oh, God.
yeah, just ask a question of them.
Is there any way you can hold back the closing?
Yeah, I think it's honestly from the hesitation, I think it will just have to just be done, and then I feel like the seller is gonna have to work with whoever on what needs to happen, unfortunately. Because much, and I knowing that what's gonna be penalized to me.
It's a,
And try and expand
There's all
it,
kinds of.
which I'll do
here,
first,
Because the
but-
owner could actually contact the board of
That's
justice, say,
what-
hey, I have this, I'm gonna sell it, they're gonna build a house, you know, and they get the variance to have that there. Because now we know about it, you know, so, I don't know. I mean, it's just,
Could the current owner,
would they,
or would they?
they could, would they?
We'll see.
Okay.
They did pass away earlier. So we'll see, but thank you guys for your comments and opinions, I'll work on that.
I need a 2-minute break. Start with chips.
Karen was looking at the code.
That's good. Just trying to get them oriented, the right way.
Why, this is.
Okay. When was that?
2000.
Oh, okay, so it's been, okay, so you know what, that's been. Okay.
I was. It's not clear to me. That's right. Clients who want to keep. You don't have Well, that's the sentiment. Next I disagree with that, but that's your.
It's in the code book.
That was your kid.
No, it's in the code book.
That they can't allow.
You cannot, the city change the building. The city can't say that, but you have a code book.
I just
It's in there.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna go back, and we're gonna start on 9, we'll do A, B, C. 14, 15, we got our financial advisor gonna be on the phone.
There she goes.
Chip Schultz.
Good evening, Chip.
Hi, Jim.
Yeah, hello there. Where are we at? Or should I go ahead with a kind of an overview?
Overview, and then what I want to do, Chip, I want to go with, do you have the agenda?
I do.
Okay, I want to do 9 ABC, and then I want to jump to 14 and then 15, so you can advise us on all of it. But you can go the overview of what you gave us.
Okay, so then to me, that's on, if that sounds like that's on
14.
kind of agenda items 14 and 15.
Okay.
So what I had provided was background basically to, it really initially, it's came up for two reasons, is to propose a slight levy adjustment for fiscal year 25-26 with two items under consideration. One, having the city in a position to generate sufficient TIF revenues to pay existing and proposed TIF debt, primarily for the most recent housing phase. That's the new TIF paid item that'll come on the TIF certification each year. And then additionally, generated enough regular operating property tax dollars to fund the city's day-to-day operations, which has been tight, certainly for a number of years because of the use of the tax base to pay TIF obligations. Then also secondarily, I think certainly being proposed, and if you're following any action at the state legislature, that they're coming after property taxes again this year. So there's a pretty decent likelihood, it's not definitive, not concretely known, but this fiscal year 25-26 could very well become basically kind of a starting point property tax frame for what might be impacted by future subsequent fiscal years impact on the city's ability to implement a sufficient property tax levy to fund operations. Prior in calendar year 2023, the city's library levy, 27-cent emergency levy, and I think there was there are other levies that the city might have had that were consolidated into a combined general fund levy. That's likely to change even further for future fiscal years. And what I had laid out was a framework that was hopefully viewed as a potential compromise to adjust the city levy up $1. That's the proposed initial concept, up to approximately $16.50 per thousand. What that would impact in terms of a homeowner per 100,000 of assessed value, that's about an impact of about $4 per month. That $100,000 home is rolled back to $47,400 for the taxable valuation, the valuation to which levies are applied. And if you have a $200,000 home, take that $4 per month times 2. A $300,000 home, take the $4 per month times 3. And I guess I'm concerned about the city having a sound financial footing going forward to pay TIF obligations, because the city's levy is the single largest levy component of the overall consolidated TIF levy that drives the city's TIF revenue. So the city is the largest determinant of what your TIF revenue is. So that's why this is would respectfully offer this as an important point to consider. And I know it's not a popular thing to propose, but really wanted to have the city in the strongest financial position going forward. And fundamentally, what happens if the city's levy adjusts upward to whatever level of council determines is appropriate, the higher the consolidated levy is, of which the city is the highest single driver of that levy rate, the higher the consolidated levy is, the less of the city's valuation is needed to pay TIF. Assuming your TIF revenue target per year hypothetically is $1 million. If you have a higher consolidated levy, you need less valuation to generate that $1 million versus having a levy. So what happens is if you have a higher consumption levy, less valuation is needed for TIF, that by definition leaves more valuation available to fund the city's operations. So the city wins in a dual, there's a dual benefit. You have more money to pay TIF debt and you have more money to fund operations. So the $16.50, if you look through Exhibit 1 in the packets, that's relatively reasonable compared to the historic city levies, which have been more in the $18 to $19 per thousand range. So it's hopefully viewed as a compromise. And Exhibit 1, I would just point out a couple of items where the city has room with its levies. I've assumed in column E, and this doesn't have to exactly be this way, you should drive it based on where Ash and Sarah indicate revenues needed, but I've assumed it's impacted in column E, the liability and property insurance column, and then as well as in column I, the employee benefits for FICA and IPERS. And the city has room under the other employee benefits column in column J. That has no levy limit under House File 718 that was passed in 2023. So that's where you have room where those rectangular shapes are placed at the bottom center of Exhibit 1. So there's summary data at the bottom of Exhibit 1 that's broken out, but simply just trying to keep the city in sound financial shape by hopefully having what's viewed as a reasonable levy, and also positions the city in to pay TIF debt and to fund operations. And I'll keep it at that and would be glad to answer questions.
Chip, I got a question. This is Mayor Cook. What's it do if they didn't go ahead and approve the franchise fee tonight and just go with the levy? How does that go with the city of Stuart?
I don't think they were related, right?
It just depends how you were intending to use the franchise fee revenue. So that's the kind of the principal determinant in terms of what the impact, what the net results are, I think, basically.
Ash, with the budget that you proposed to us at our budget workshop, are we able to meet all of our obligations underneath that budget?
Yes.
Chip, is the city of Stuart able to certify enough TIF to meet their TIF debt as it is right now?
You're able to pay the TIF debt obligations in fiscal year 25-26 with a combination of new TIF revenues coming in for the upcoming fiscal year, FY26. In addition to, there's going to have to be some use of TIF cash on hand. What becomes concerning is, and I'm trying to look around the corner and look to the future a little bit, if there are more future, the city's had some pretty good success with the development agreements you've approved. If those continue to come in, and I'm trying to take the approach that the cities would be put in a position to say that yes to most, if not all of those, there likely will be more that will come in front of the city council. And this levy adjustment puts the city in a position where you are far more likely to say yes than to say no and have a business go to another community. So the city's okay for FY 25-26. The 4 years coming ahead through the fiscal year ending June 30, 2029, those will be some tight years with TIF dollars. We've visited about that in the past, and I'm really, if something happens at the legislature, and it just feels like something's going to happen this year, just from experience, that's where I think the city would be better served to have a slight levy adjustment, which hopefully, it's below the historic range of $18 to $19. Hopefully, it's still viewed as reasonable.
So really right now, what I'm hearing is if we don't adjust this levy, we might have a harder time agreeing to any new TIF projects that would come across. right? We wouldn't have a lot of
Very well
flexibility.
put.
So we could, if the council chose, we could just say, hey, maybe we're not gonna do that, you know? And don't we have some of those, TIF projects falling off in a couple of years?
There are some that will be falling off, but there's not a really meaningful, what you might call a break in the TIF dollars, a meaningful decline until after the June 30, 2029 fiscal year.
Sure. Warren Barley has a question. Can you come up microphone one, please?
Hi, Chip, this is Warren Varley. And the concern I have is that when you did your projections for the new housing development, phase 4, our construction contract called for the lots to be available last June. And our expectation was that we would have houses in the phase 4 development as of January 1 this year. Well, it's now almost, we're not yet able to offer the lots to the builders because the contractor is not performed. Wouldn't raising the levy now give us, I mean, my concern is that what you said is we would have trouble having enough funding after the existing TIF debt was paid in order to cover, particularly if we're prevented from raising the levy in the future. Is that, you follow me?
Yes, what you set out is reasonable and it sounds on point, yes. So I had assumed, Councilman Doley had asked about this, what I had previously assumed for the build-out pace for Wamble 3rd edition, the overall 4th edition, is that I believe I assumed 8 homes would be constructed by January 1, 2025. Well, that obviously didn't happen. So that means the city's in a less favorable position relative to TIF dollars than what we had assumed.
But Forrest, we're hitting them with liquidated damages, aren't we? To get that tax base
Yes,
of the houses that should have been there.
yes.
What was really, Matt, was it 20?
That's projected that we did have enough interest to show that we could have had 20 of them.
Okay.
When to piggyback off of Mike's question earlier, if we did not increase the levy, have you projected at all what next year might look like for a levy, like a proposed levy, if we didn't raise it this year?
I've not taken a multi-year approach. It's the straight answer is no. And the reason this has become, I think, a little bit more urgent is just really the seeming continual message that you're hearing from the State House that they're proposing to do property tax reform this year yet again. So you might take a compromise approach and say, look, we're not comfortable doing the dollar now. We're comfortable, I'm just going to throw a number out here, say doing 50 cents this year for FY 25-26, reevaluating the future years at the future points in time. So that's an alternative approach. We won't have the city as strong of a financial position, but it's a potential compromise.
If we did this, Ash, are we going to improve our services to the citizens in all if we raise this?
Increase the tax rate?
Yeah. What benefit are these guys going to get out of it? Besides us being able to pay,
I think
day-to-day
increase the tax rate, increase your capacity of TIF. So, because the more you increase the TIF, the less you get into the general fund. So I don't know, I don't wanna.
I don't want to pit anybody against each other. I'm just trying to figure this out, because
It's really the conclusion to what's going on now is, we set the tax rate there was a policy passed here by the council you're on the council, Mike, to not to exceed $15.50. I think what TIF is trying to do is trying to look for the future and trying to increase the TIF capacity, the money we get from the TIF. The approach to it is to increase the taxes.
Right.
So it's not a popular thing, and I think that's what Chip is trying to say. The budget proposal that I gave you stayed within the $15.50. If you wanna go to the unpopular decision, that's what you need to do to increase the taxes. If you wanna keep it as it is, we deal with it next year. That's
Well,
just,
and that's just what I was gonna say is, and normally I would probably just jump in with both feet, on this information that Chip gave us, but we're kind of at the 11th hour here on making a decision. And it's good information. Can we, I don't know, Dave, yourself, I don't know who else, I'd be interested in doing it. Sit down and really digest this with Chip, and then, maybe kind of look at stuff. Chip said we can do this for this year, and I get we want to look at it for next year, but maybe instead of, a month before we have to finalize it or whatever, maybe we need to start either in July or September or something, and go over this and really understand it. Because, I know you've done, since I've been on the council, you've kept us in that triangle and the budget framework that the other council, I know that's just a guideline for us, so you can raise it to whatever you want to. But I think, you told us that we're good at this. Chip has indicated that we can do it this fiscal year, and maybe next year we sit down and check information, or later on this year, and we say, okay, this is where we're at, this is what we need to do. And it may have to be raised.
and I recommend we do.
Yeah.
Because we'll be close to the 2029, we are all in the dilemma of end the TIF to get close to the 2029. I think next fiscal year will be 26, 27, so that's very close to 2029. I can sit with Chair, I can sit with Dolly, and any other concerned council member, you too, Mike, because you have the longevity. And we will be able to have this comprehensive plan for not just next fiscal year.
Right, for year after year, yeah. I mean,
We set it as a policy like this.
Right.
Because when I got this as a policy, I followed it.
Right.
And we followed, and the council cooperated with 15.
Yeah, we went over a little bit, but
Yeah.
still.
So you can take that approach, Mike, if that's what you would like, and I think that's more comfortable, is to continue on that under $15.50 this year. Next year, we take the approach of comprehensive plan with Chet, myself, you, and Dolly, to have it for the next 3 years. The tax is set for the next 3 years from a slight increase. We can do that, it's kind of a good idea. I'll back you up on it.
Second, John. Chip, Ash and I had a phone call with you the other day. You said raising the levy, you still benefit from the general fund. Can you explain that to the council, your statement?
You bet. So I'm using the term generically general fund, but it's specifically revenue that would be for, again, back to Exhibit 1, for property and liability insurance dollars, and for employee benefits revenue. So the adjustment that is broken out on Exhibit 1, it has a dual benefit. It benefits both the operating dollars through insurance and employee benefits. If you apply the levy adjustment, the dollars additional for operations for fiscal year 25-26, it brings in about $55,000 more in additional operating or generically speaking, general fund dollars, and it brings in about $115,000 more in TIF revenues. So between the two, it's roughly $170,000. If when you have a higher consolidated levy, this is counterintuitive, but it takes less valuation to generate stable TIF revenue target when you have a higher consolidated levy. So when you raise the consolidated levy, less of your tax base gets pulled to the TIF valuation bucket, more remains for funding operations. Counterintuitive, but that's how it works.
Okay, thanks, Chip. And then, I don't have a vote on this. Chip's recommended raise $1. But my question is, if you don't raise it this year, I think there needs to be a motion for next year. Dan Sherman said he didn't have all the information he needed on stuff. Chip is our financial advisor. During our budget session, at our meetings, if they're gonna talk about these specific, that we have Chip either on the phone at our meeting guiding us on this. Okay, Sean, you got.
I would concur with that too. I think,
I'm not the smartest guy in the room by any means, and so all I hear asked a question about expanding services. So, given that we have about 5 positions open across the city that we need to hire people for, and we're kind of losing some people that stuff like that, would it give us some room to attract people, with benefits or higher salaries or whatever the case may be there? Is that, would this benefit that at all? I mean, kind of looking to, we're talking about a fiscal year, a whole 18 months in advance, but, what about right now in the next 12 months or so? That was my question, which is,
That could be one of the uses, if that's basically the policy decision that would be council. That's a potential use of the funds, the roughly 55,000 in additional money for operating dollars. But that's the council's decision how those dollars are used.
Okay, it was just a question.
Thanks, Sean.
So what you guys would like to do, it's a policy decision. You would like to increase it by $1, you would like to keep it as it is and have that meeting and set it.
I'm gonna throw it out there that I'd like to keep it as it is, as you presented it. Since, I understand both sides, I get it. But like I said, with it being the 11th hour where we need to get this going, there's a lot of information that Chip does throw out there, and I think we need more time, and I think we do need to have him at our budget meetings, or, we can meet in between then, so people understand that. So I'll make that motion that we accept it based on what you gave us at the budget workshop.
Moved by Carl.
Second that.
Second. How do you vote, Patrick?
Yes.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Kavah?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
That's 15. And 15 is setting the date for the public hearing. There's gonna be a special meeting
At 6 p.m.
at 6 p.m. and that's just a guideline by the state. We have to have it on March 10th. So that would be, we need a motion to approve the resolution.
Moved by Kavah,
Second.
second by Russell. How do you vote? Patrick?
Yes.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Kavah?
Yes.
Morgan?
Now we'll go back to the line.
Okay, revenue purpose statement, resolution number 2502C, considering adopting the revenue purpose statement.
Mr. Mayor. Hi, Christine Stone with Allers and Cooney. I can introduce these items if that's all right with you. So there's 3 action items for you this evening. The first is a resolution adopting a revenue purpose statement. This is required anytime a city is adopting a franchise ordinance that imposes a franchise fee. So this would need to be adopted prior to the 2 subsequent ordinances that are on the agenda. The purposes for which you can use franchise fees is limited by state law. So that revenue purpose statement essentially recites the purposes as they appear in the Iowa code. The only omission that we included in that was, property tax, relief, because if that were included in the revenue purpose statement, you would have to specify exactly how much property tax relief you were going to provide. And to allow you the most flexibility, we just keep that out and include all the other, purposes. Obviously, if you're using franchise fees for some of those other purposes, that may offset some of your property tax obligations. So that is how that has been structured. The two ordinances that are before you, both of those require a public hearing. Again, that's required by Iowa law before you consider and adopt the first reading of those. The ordinances are with the two local electric co-ops. So the first one is with the Guthrie County Rural Electric Co-op Association, and the second one is with Farmers Electric Co-op. Those ordinances are essentially exactly the same. They identify sort of the conditions under which the utilities are allowed access to the right-of-way, how relocations occur, if there are city projects that require relocation, those types of things. And then they do impose a franchise fee of 5% on both of those. The ordinances indicate that the franchise fees will start being collected on June 1st. So there is a little bit of a lag there to allow them to get all their bookkeeping in order. Both of the co-ops have reviewed the ordinances. They provided a little bit of feedback. We tweaked them slightly, but they're essentially, in agreement with how they're structured currently. So with that, I'm just here to answer questions.
Thank you.
Yes, you're
Thank you
welcome.
so much. You'll proceed with the
All right.
items. 9A, need a motion to approve the resolution number 2502C.
I'll move that.
Made by Cobba,
So,
second by Dolly. How do you vote? Patrick?
No.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
yes.
Cobba?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Okay,
Are we gonna do all three readings?
yeah, but we need the public hearing first.
Yeah. Now, Guthrie County Rural Electric Corporation Association franchise ordinance. Public hearing. At this point, I open the public hearing. Did you receive any comments, concerns, Patty?
No.
Comments, concerns? Dan?
Well, first of all, so I'm looking at the allowed purposes of the revenue, for the revenue statement. And I was wondering which one of these allowed purposes the statement meets. Right here, I think they're in your packet, because that's.
I don't know, what do you mean?
There's allowed purposes for these franchise fees.
Right.
They have to go on the revenue statement.
Right.
What I'm asking is, our purpose statement, which one of these allowed purposes does it fall on? There's a list here, you guys have it somewhere. It's like there's one on franchise fees, page 6 of 25 is where it starts. Maybe you can answer that.
You can use it for any of those purposes, right?
Correct.
Yeah, this is basically the council saying we will use them for any of these purposes.
So
it gives them flexibility.
We talked about a purpose statement the other night.
Right.
On one. I'm asking.
No,
No,
that wasn't a purpose.
That's different, yeah, that's different.
That's different. That's totally different than this. What we were agreeing to, that was between the council and the utility board, not for this purpose.
Okay. Is that the agreement with the Stuart utilities?
So.
Because we're a separate, we're a utility also.
Right, the idea is that will come in March. There's no requirement for a public hearing. That would just be both entities approving that agreement.
Okay. So we still have to approve the agreement.
Okay.
Like I was saying there. Okay, that answers that question. So on my end, I know that there's probably some discrepancies between how the city and the utilities interact, and it's more so now because we have 3 electric utilities. And when we first talked at the first meeting where Tim talked, and I remember him saying that if we need to raise our revenue, that the franchise fee wasn't the way for the utilities to do it. We needed to raise our rates. And when we talked about doing this, the way we worked it was talked about doing, which isn't what we're doing, was that maybe the utilities would charge the city for their, at least electric. I don't know if we have multiple entities in the water, or we just have one, but electric's the main one, because we have 3 different utilities. And so it would seem more fair everywhere, where if the franchise fee is set to go to pay city expenses and we get our revenue from rates, it would make more sense for me, just for transparency, if we charge the city for utilities rather than a separate deal that they're gonna cover part of. I think the utilities should cover all of our expenses and the city should cover theirs. And that, to me, is a more clear-cut option, because we're 2 separate entities, we have separate finances, and I think this really muddies the water. We need to keep those finances separate. And if there's an issue of fairness, it really doesn't address the issue of fairness, because we didn't even attempt to figure out, well, what would that number be if we asked the city to pay their utilities? It could be 150,000, maybe it's 30,000. But I think if we went to that approach, we'd be much more likely to come up with something that's fair to everyone.
Spot on.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. John?
I think Dan is talking something that I've thought about for a long, long time. And the first thing I want you, the council members, to understand is that the first obligation of a member of the board, the Stuart Municipality Board, they're a board of trustees. Their first obligation is to be caretakers of the general fund of the revenue for the utility board. Anything else can go by the wayside. That's what their charge is. They are a board of trustees. Now, what you're talking about here, this franchise fee, let's face it, it's a tax mechanism. The city operates on taxes. The utility board operates on revenue. The interest is different. One should not marry up with the other. And if it does, you create a lot of confusion, not only amongst the ratepayers, but amongst the taxpayers. Dan said it the other night at the joint meeting, that the best way for the city to increase its revenue is by raising its taxes. The best way for the utility board to raise its revenue is by increasing its rates. There should not be any other argument about that. It should be pretty cut and dry. And when you try to confuse that, then you get into the issue of a lack of transparency. And that's really what I see is the problem here, is transparency. Now, some believe the taxpayers of the city of Stuart and the ratepayers of the Stuart Municipal Utilities are one and the same, and they are not. And you need to understand that the 2 largest customers of the Stuart Municipal Utilities do not pay taxes in the city of Stuart. So how are you gonna square that with those ratepayers who don't pay taxes here? So whatever you do, I ask that you use extreme caution here, because this is something that the utility board, from a tax standpoint, probably makes sense to you. But from the utilities perspective, it becomes very confusing. And frankly, I think you're asking them to do something that they shouldn't be doing.
John, I got one quick question before you leave. Since you're on the utility boards, all the city buildings, the electric comes from revenue from the wind turbine. How does that work? Is it a flip deal with finances? Or, I mean,
Well, we couldn't finance the wind turbine,
the
so
city,
that had to come through the city.
okay.
And I don't know if it came from them, Ash. The city has never paid an electric or water utility bill.
The lights and everything.
Yeah, the lights and everything. These lights you're running, paid for by the Stuart Municipal Utilities, always have been.
Swimmers and
Yeah.
everything.
Water for the swimming pool, everything. So, you know, and I'm not sure that's German here, but what should be for the city and revenue for the utility board shouldn't get mixed up. It just shouldn't. So you're gonna make your ratepayers on the utility side and your taxpayers on the city side a lot more comfortable if you don't mix this up. It's gonna be much more transparent. I said it.
Thanks, John.
I got something to
Dan,
add. I'm gonna
go ahead.
clarify something. When he said, and this is gonna cost me more money, when he says these lights, I don't. And neither do the people out here. That's why we
Right.
really need to change the way we're interacting, city and utilities, to make it fair. Like I said, it's probably gonna cost me more, but I'm more concerned with transparency. I think it helps with trust for both the council and utilities, and I think we both could use a little more of that from the public. And that's my point about the three utilities is what customers of one utility are paying for the lights in this building. And they're paying for the lights that light the streets out there, and the one light bulb got out stuff.
Yeah. Two light bulbs.
There's one, I'd say.
Oh, one.
The other one's my yard light.
Anybody else have anything? Mr. Young.
Hi, how are y'all tonight?
Good.
There's a lot of angry people on Facebook that like hiding behind their phone. Okay, so I sat up here on the joint meeting and it sounded as if the franchise fee would be used to help lower rates and pay for Stuart electrical odds and ends, go towards new transformer, things like that. Is that correct?
No.
No.
No, all that money comes into the city to use for these permissible purposes,
Okay.
okay? So,
Were those purposes discussed during the joint special meeting?
no.
Okay.
But we talked about how we could help the council, how we could help the utilities, with some cost savings. But they don't get any of this money because they can't.
Okay, but for 25 years, the money could basically float around in every option that's on that paper that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be, it's not secret, you can.
No, absolutely.
Remediation, repair, cleanup, she talked about property tax relief, but that's not in here.
And that's where I guess my concern, my thought was, if you're putting a franchise fee on electricity, wouldn't you want to keep that fund towards electrical only to improve XYZ, lower rates for customers? I think that was discussed as well. That's kind of a slush fund to lower rates.
Tim,
the public utilities, it says.
One of the things that they
Public works,
proposed
public
was,
utilities and public
so right now, some of
transportation.
the,
Two people talking.
sorry,
You got it.
City
John,
Hall has a
John,
couple
come up the
employees
microphone.
that are paid 50% out of the utility, 50% out of the city fund. So then they were talking about taking some of those salaries and taking them out. So then the utilities had more, they weren't paying that. So then they would be, that was where the offset.
Sure.
At the joint meeting, that's what their proposal was.
Okay, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just gonna use them as an example. The Womble folks out here, they will pay this franchise fee, but they will see no benefit. For the most part, on their electrical bill. They're paying a tax on their electrical bill.
They're not paying for this and they're using the benefit right now,
Well,
right?
sure,
If they come
but
up-
that, I mean, that should have been oriented early on. It was like,
I mean,
put it out there.
if I get taxed and I don't wanna use the library, do I get to come up and say, I don't want my taxes going to the library because I don't use it? It's not benefiting you.
No, not saying that. I guess just a portion of it. I mean, it seems like a taxation and representation type of thing.
So,
They can get involved in.
so because we have the three entities,
Mhm.
and anybody else can jump in here, okay? So if the utilities raises the rates, they're gonna raise the rates just on the Stuart utility customers.
Sure.
The RECs, doesn't matter. So, that'd be great for me if my neighbor across the hedge has to pay more, but I don't have to pay more, but I can still benefit from them paying more. The franchise fee just
Yeah, how would your neighbor
levels it.
feel about that?
Levels it, what's that?
That's how would your neighbor feel about that if they're paying a fee and they're not?
So if you were paying a fee and I didn't have to, franchise fee, or they raised the rates on you and they didn't on me, why would I care? And they just, somebody stood up here and said, it's gonna cost me more. It's basically saying, I don't care if my neighbor has to pay more, I don't wanna pay more.
Right.
But the franchise fee kind of levels that. Everybody pays for it and they get the benefit. Now they have a little skin in the game where they don't right now.
Sure.
And then again, part of these permissible uses does talk about public utilities. So, and it can be used for any of these, and we leave it up to our city employees, if they need projects, or city administrator on how to do that. So, so you could increase your rate on a small population of people, and maybe it's a higher rate, maybe it's not 5%, maybe it's 8%, I don't know, to get the same amount of money as you do with a 5% increase on a larger amount of people.
Sure, and that's the only thing, it's 5%. Me, it's not gonna kill me by any means. I'm sure there's people out there in this town that 5% could make or break a gallon at the end of the day, which is neither here nor there. But yeah, I guess my only opinion to it is that this is kind of a broad brush shotgun approach, whereas to keep things clean, use a rifle approach, and if I live here in town, if I need my rates raised, just raise my rates and keep it clean. So that's my only opinion. But man, thanks for what you guys do. There's a lot of people that complain about you on Facebook, and they have never sat at one of these meetings.
By the way, thank you for,
Elections coming.
I was just gonna say, we got elections, and we'll put your name on the ballot.
You can put me on there, I won't show up. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks, sir.
I got a kind of a comment to some of that, what I've heard so far. Am I allowed to speak?
Yes.
Okay. One of my comments is, Dan made the comment that, right now the city does not pay for its utilities. That's all funded by the utility board. So I know everyone's in arms about this franchise fee, but what if the utility board comes back and says, okay, we're going to deny the franchise fee, but we're going to start charging the city? In essence, it's the same thing happening. The city is going to have to go, well, we can't absorb that. We're going to have to raise our taxable rate to fund that. And so it's still the same amount of money, or it could be potentially more money, depends on how that all happens.
I'll answer that.
It's going to happen no matter what.
We gotta be out of here by 10 o'clock.
I don't work tomorrow, so I got
Neither do I.
Whether it's a franchise fee or property taxes, the city tax is a city tax.
Yes.
So, but what I'm saying is, rather than making a little agreement like, we're all not gonna charge you as much for the employees, I say we all pay our bills, we stand on our own. And have we even tried to determine what this number is for these lights for the city? Has anybody even attempted?
Yes.
What is it? Do you know what the city share would be approximately?
Every year we have a statement that's presented to the utility board.
Okay, do we know what that is? Can you tell me off the top, close?
The last one, you know, 26,000.
It depends on if you're looking at the cost of the utilities or if the utilities actually treated the city as a customer.
That's what I'm talking about. If
Yeah.
the city paid a bill, what would that bill be? Because the number we're coming up, this was $75,000 from this tax was gonna go to, but I'm like, how are we quantifying? What writer, are we writing it wrong or are we creating a one? See what I'm saying? If the city's utilities are actually $32,000, bring enough in from the, are we better or are we worse? We haven't figured that out.
Well, if it is, and you guys were getting a cost savings of 75 and it's only 32, then the
Right.
utilities would be benefiting on that.
Correct, but, or we could just, like I said, charge what the city's actually is, just let them pay a utility bill. We'll bill them, and that's the money we'll get to help lower everybody's rates. We can adjust whatever that number is, you can adjust the franchise to cover that. It doesn't, you're saying 5%, we don't know what that number is. See what I'm saying? I don't think you should kick back more than what we should to the city out of this, or to the utilities out of this. It needs to be fair. That's why I'm saying, the three utilities, we gotta do this right, and we're not doing it quite right. It worked at one time.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work anymore.
I know the city has really tried its best to work with the utilities on a couple things. You know, we extended the hand of trying to offer help with the TIF thing for a project. Didn't want that. Now we are extending our hand to help offset costs. It seemed like utilities.
I personally just want to do it the right way.
Yeah.
Because like John said, it's all about transparency and fairness.
I think we've been.
Well, this purpose isn't really transparent because, well, we're gonna offset part of your costs. Why don't we just make it straightforward? We're gonna charge you X amount for utilities. That helps keep our rates down. Just keep it at that, because this 75,000, we don't even know if that's a fair number or not. That would be the utility share. Have we even tried to figure out if that's a fair number? And shouldn't we pay our bills with rates like it's supposed to be? And shouldn't you pay your bills with taxes?
Well, that's what you're paying up, Brian. You're not getting any money from us. You're saving that rate that you did and this.
It's like we are. How are you justifying the cost share that, those employees that we utilize?
Utilize Ash, Sarah.
Okay, and that's my question.
Who else?
Shouldn't the Shouldn't the city pay, the utilities pay their fair share of that's what I'm saying. We should pay our fair share, keep it separate, keep the finances separate. This isn't keeping it separate. It's
Are we mixing finances with this?
I don't see any mix, I think the confusion here.
I do, because it's not, like I said, it's not straightforward.
It could be, there's a lot of unknown thing around it because it's something new to it. We never had franchise fee on.
If let's quantify the full amount of money.
I guess what we could do is, if you don't want 75, we could just take 50% of that, whatever it is, give them 46. And, I mean, we can adjust the number. I mean,
On the other hand, I'm gonna go with what Mike's proposing because we can do it actually that way. We can, the money that we only charge the city for I'm talking about utilities, for the lights and street light and all that stuff, we can charge. At the end of the day, I think the confusion coming because we don't know the exact number of the franchise fee the first time.
That's part.
Next year, in the same time, I will be able to tell you exactly what it is, how much you get. But in the meantime, we can go with all these proposals. But it's not for tonight. Tonight, we're passing the ordinance still for the franchise fee.
Correct.
I think I see your point there, and I really respect it because you made a good point at the last joint meeting. Just kind of the confusion of how you wanted to separate city and utility. We always have been.
Right.
And we can do it your way.
It looks unfair on this.
We can go back because we still have a meeting in 2 days, a joint meeting. We can discuss now, I think with the conclusion, we asked Mike and me on the utility board to get together, come up with a proposal. They did the best and came up with that 80% as you suggested.
And we can do this without a franchise fee. We can just do it straight with property taxes.
You can do it.
That's probably actually the best way to go.
I kind of like your way of the obvious way of that free service that the utility provide to the city. You propose that, why don't we charge the city for it?
Correct.
Yeah, why not?
But, and then even in doing that, we don't even have to pass a franchise fee to do that. It would just be city taxes paying the city bill. That's probably actually more straightforward. Now, you can always do a franchise fee. In fact, Fort Dodge, back in September, doing this with both their electric and their gas. And they put it to a referendum and let the voters decide. They made their case both ways and they let the voters vote. You can do that too. It doesn't take a petition to do that.
It doesn't take anything to do.
Well, but then you're letting the citizens decide rather than 5 people sitting up here. Let the citizens decide. If you feel like you've got a good purpose for it, let the citizens decide.
It's a policy decision. What I'm trying to explain
It
is
is.
the transparency that I heard everyone is asking for at tonight meetings. I think the time for talking about that is the next joint meeting that we have to decide what the cooperation, the agreement that the lawyer referred to will be presented or needs to be presented at the next joint meeting between city and utility. How you want that to work out. Mike and you came up with good ideas. We took some of your proposals.
Well, and what was presented, I
Yeah.
came to this meeting, the last meeting with no information. Now, you and I were in a packet to study the day before. And 2 of our other, I don't know about anybody else, but I know 2 of them, they knew all the information going into the meeting. And I felt a little blindsided that, why didn't I get anything before this meeting? You guys have already scheduled this information.
Because in our special utility meeting that we had before the other night, they asked Dick and I to approve 1 member from each one,
Correct.
and that's what they were set to do. The joint meeting we had last Wednesday night, that's what their thing was to do, was to come to both of us and let us know. None of us knew what they were coming up with. That's why we had this special meeting.
We didn't even get anything before the meeting. And that's
No,
why.
none of us did.
Why didn't we get it back?
That's, we were having it.
We didn't have anything to get.
Well, we should on it. Why would we do it on a regular meeting and not do it on a special meeting or something? I didn't like that. I came in totally blindsided. I couldn't even study, think about it. I had to kind of operate off the cuff where a couple of our members did have all the information. And I don't know, were you the only one with yours that knew any of the details with the city council? From what you and Neil had worked on?
I was the only one.
Okay, because there's 2 of ours that did, and I had one.
No, there was only one of us that did. It was Neil and Mike.
The guy
That's the
sitting
only
next to me seemed to know the details pretty well.
Who did?
The guy sitting next to me seemed to know the details.
Brian?
Yes, he seemed to know all the details too.
Nothing I knew about it.
Well, from what he spoke in the meeting, he did. And they also had numbers that I had never heard before. We knew we were gonna have to raise rates. They're talking 4% and 6%, and I've never heard those numbers out of Chip. You know, where were those numbers from? I don't know. Did you know that from before? Okay, just saying.
I guess my 2 cents is, hearing all this, I think it's gonna be an auditor's nightmare, doing something like that. I don't know. I'm not an auditor, but once they come and audit us, makes things going on with each other. I'm really hesitant here.
Just keep in mind, there's no money being mixed here, okay? So it's like if I give Craig $10,000 a year for something, and he does a franchise fee, and he says, you know what, don't pay me that 10,000. So I keep that, and no money is mixed. I don't get where this mixing is coming in. It's not mixing money, we're saying, we're gonna save you on the cost share. You're not mixing money, are you?
No.
I mean, I don't see it. I'm trying to see where that would happen, but I don't see it.
It's not straightforward. It should be straightforward. These interactions, and
I
that's
think
not.
there will be more talk about it in the next joint meeting here on Thursday. There will be more clear area. Think the hearing now about the franchise.
Oh, yeah.
Really, so we kind of jump into the next joint meeting tomorrow.
Sure.
So the relationship between the city and utility needs to be worked out at a joint meeting.
Right.
Yes.
So Mike, maybe you can answer this question. Now, the origin of even starting this franchise fee was more of a driver from suggestions on how the utilities can, as Brian would say, pull other levers to generate revenue. That was a driver to then get an appointee from each side to come together and talk about, hey, let's do this franchise fee. So really, it is a driver coming from more the utility side, asking for this, and we decided, yes, we can help you out with this.
That is correct.
That's exactly what that, yes.
It's,
That's how it was.
it's not something that we sat up here and said, well, we're gonna do this. It was, you know, they got some big projects possibly on the horizon. And, you know, rates will probably have to go up at some time. We were trying to work in unison with them, as I think we should, to a greater extent than, and we have been doing that, than we have. Because, you know, we represent the city on both sides and try to figure out how we can help each other, you know?
And as minimally raise rates as possible.
Yeah, and try to stave off those increases, you know, by doing this cost savings for as long as possible on that. You know, because we don't want to do franchise fees and then see them raise the rates, you know, because that would be.
I think they're gonna have to
a
anyway.
double whammy.
They would probably have to eventually.
Eventually, yeah, eventually probably.
And so, to go what you were saying, you know, just help the utility side. Mr. Cobal said earlier, we've tried to help them before and they like, no. So why do we want to help them now?
We have a different board now. We have a board that is willing to work together and willing to work with the city. That makes a big difference.
Okay, so we're still on the hearing now. Even more, more of a public hearing.
Yeah, we haven't closed the public hearing. Any more comment concerns?
No, we need to close the vote.
Close the public hearing. then.
Okay.
Now, ordinance 25.
9B, ordinance 25, 1C. The motion.
Okay.
Moved by Calvin.
I'll second.
Second, how do you vote? Patrick?
No.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Cobble?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
And we want to do second one?
Yes, we have 2/4 of the vote, we can do the
Need
second.
a motion for the second reading
So moved.
by Cobble,
Second.
by Dolly, how do you vote? Patrick?
No.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Cobble?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Make a motion for the waive the third and final.
I'll move.
Moved.
Second.
Second. How do you vote? Patrick?
Again, no.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Cobble?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Okay.
See,
10, C,
now, C, Farmers Electric Corporation, open the public hearing on
that's the
this.
same thing, same everything, I don't know. Anyone, wanna ask?
Dan?
No.
You good? Anybody
Okay.
else? Did you receive anything?
No.
Okay, close the public hearing now. Ordinance 2502C, considering approving the first reading of electric franchise.
Need a motion?
There's my comment. By Morgan, how do you vote? Patrick?
No.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Cobble?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Need a motion for the third reading?
So moved. This is the,
Who moved it?
Second.
this is the second reading.
Second by Dole. This is the
Dolly?
second
Yeah,
reading,
second.
moved by Russell,
Okay.
second by Dolly.
How do you vote? Patrick?
No.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Cobble?
Yes.
Final reading.
Morgan?
Yep.
Third and final waive the.
Oh, move that.
Second.
Second by Russell.
Second. How do you vote for Patrick?
No.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Cobble?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, now, 10,
then
Eastern Kim,
we need,
I don't know, are you,
oh, that's the,
was Jace is not here, do you know anything about that?
I mean, this was a carryover from
not.
a month ago's meeting.
Can I ask a because I wasn't here when this was first brought up, and that's my fault. But I want to try to be clear because under compensation.
I'm gonna drop off the phone call. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
It scared me a little bit. Okay, so under 4 compensation. And I forget by the contracted engineer inspected and it gives a rate, plus current mileage, okay. If additional assistance, building inspector, IA, a different rate, and then another building inspector, I get another rate. How is anybody who's just a layperson supposed to know when those rates are gonna come into play? He might not know. So here would be my suggestion,
We got our code down.
I would just, I think we need to take.
It's a good question, I like,
Yeah,
but I don't have the answer.
but what I would like to do and what I'd like to suggest, and if we need a motion to do this, or just the council says, is maybe see if Kevin Sargent can take a look at this
Sure.
and give us some feedback on it and maybe ask that specific question. And if you have more, because I mean, I wouldn't know when they need to do a different inspector on this. And I would want to have something laid out that, at least some examples and say,
Sure.
this. So do we need a motion on that? Or just
Table it down.
and give that?
Did we ever talk about, I mean, I saw some examples in this next packet and stuff, but, and I'm not saying this isn't great and we shouldn't stay with Beaver against it, but did we have any discussion about looking into any other company about system hourly? Or is it are there other companies or all of them going hourly? Are there other ones that are still on a fixed rate? I just, again, it goes back to, I think that meeting that we talked about this briefly, we'll have no clue how much this is gonna cost us until we're a year in.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem was Jim Henderson built a deck for Swinger, and you go out there, do the footings. Then you do he was 3 or 4 times coming out from Des Moines, and I think that's the reason any money doing this, because so many trips.
But then, on
Yeah,
the
I
flip
know
side of
what it's
that,
gonna cost.
if they do,
Right.
however much for 4 trips on one project, I mean,
I like
are we
Mike's idea.
entering into some agreement where all of a sudden we get to the budget next year, we're like, well, we got $500,000 we have to set aside if we're gonna continue
Yes.
our inspection.
That could be.
Are you talking of the thing you passed last meeting, or specifically this inspection? Because didn't you guys pass the code?
We got that's 2 different things.
That's
Right, you
Code
did the
and-
$75 an hour
Done.
That
Right.
code enforcement one is different.
is different, so you're talking about this one.
This one.
Inspections. Okay, also, no, and I like your idea to have we looked around. Now, I know I can go out and look it up, maybe. I see we got the different towns on here, but ours wasn't put as a side-by-side comparison. As far as fees, maybe it is in there, did I miss it?
I would have to look.
Okay, I don't know, I looked and I saw, Atlantic, Winterset, Grimes, Greenfield, Lennox, but I didn't see the Stuarts on there.
Do we, what Mr. Dolly was just talking about, do we not pass those fees on to the homeowner on their projects?
Yeah, eventually.
That they should know their fee. But it's just gonna be what's our cost to the city that we're gonna pay. In years past, we kinda know ahead of time what we're getting into, but when we go to hourly here, we have no clue what that's gonna be until we finish up. I don't even wanna say a season, cause it changes every season. It's gonna be like a whole year until we know that.
I guess I'm puzzled why we would, so if I'm gonna put a deck on my house and B&K has to come out 5-6 times to inspect this thing along the process.
It's gonna cost the homeowner the exact same.
Right, so, but the city eats the B&K. I hate to shoot myself in the foot on that deal, but that just doesn't make sense to me. As far as why would
We
you
can't
pass
afford
on
to do
those?
decks, so we're not gonna do decks anymore.
Well,
I mean, we're losing our shirt on this, on the decks.
yeah, I just don't understand why that fee would be passed on to the homeowner. Like, I was the one who put the deck on my house. Why should you have to pay for that?
I understand.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then it comes back to, well,
So,
when you're gonna say, well, only come out once then, and then it's a crappy deck, and all these things are,
Yeah.
I get everyone's
so
point of view, but.
all the fees in here says all building plan review fees are retained 100%.
Mhm.
All new existing permits will be so that's. So,
I'd recommend you table it till Jason. can be
Okay,
on some meetings
right.
to
Right.
address these.
Okay.
And Mike, can you get hold of Kevin Department Sergeant.
Yeah.
You
That's
guys,
my man.
you guys get hold, so
Yeah.
he can confer.
Thanks,
So we're on the same page.
Oh,
Okay, we table that. 11. Now, Forrest.
I do know something about this.
All right.
Don't mind me about the. So this is a payment estimate. They're getting really close. This is for the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project on the south side of town. They're about done. The weather held them up. Sounds like the weather's gonna hold them up later this week as well. So they just have to grout the sanitary sewer services. And so there's a pay estimate on the agenda to pay them for the work that they have done so far. And there's a few number of services left, but that's about all. I would recommend approval.
Is the lift station up and running out east near the school?
So it's a different
That's
subject,
different.
but
I'm just curious.
the lift station, the pump station has been gone through the training and the operation for the pump station. The generator, the guy was sick and cannot be out there to do the startup and the training for the generator, so that still needs to be done. But the pump station itself is, yes, up and running. There's some cleanup items, a panel that got bent and that kind of thing. The fence is all up. So Matt and I were walking around looking at fences before the meeting. So the fences are up. So we're pretty close.
They got the wires pulled for the lights.
So that's another contractor for the
Yes.
lights, and so that contractor is working on that as well.
I was kind of hoping maybe we didn't mix that in here, because wanted to ask you after we were done with this vote and stuff. But, is there any estimate when they're gonna be done? For everything? Because they're supposed to be done by June, right?
Okay, well,
Last year?
Macinich.
Right.
This is not Macinich.
No.
Right, not the sewer, not the
Not the
sewer.
sewers.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that, I'm
Okay.
talking because the mayor brought it up
Yeah.
in the middle of this, so.
Okay, so Macinich.
Right.
So, yeah, they finished the fences. It's basically down to the startup of the generator and, kind of smoothing up the ground that's been disturbed out there, which can't happen until spring. But everything else, we're pretty close.
Going back to the line item here, so I'll make that motion that we make this.
Okay. Move to second. How do you vote? Patrick?
Yes.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Cobble?
Yes.
Morgan? Thanks, Forrest.
thanks for.
You're welcome.
13, Chief Rehaw.
Okay, do you want to start with the vicious dog? or do you- okay.
Yes, the pictures that I got a copy of, so you can read it, and then the chief will respond.
I mean, I'm really just here for questions as far as that goes. I think you guys already had your hearing, so.
Yeah, everything is done, I think that just the police officer wanted to show.
Yep.
So you don't wanna say anything about it, that's fine.
I mean, I'm here to answer any questions, but
But that's the one dog. Is there another dog that's involved now too?
well, there's two other dogs that have been cited since then,
Okay.
at the same residence, so it's gonna be.
They gotta get so many
Future problem.
citations before they.
So according to this, they're kind of looking into meeting our code and stuff.
Guys in that hearing that if they want to return with the dog, they would have to abide by those rules.
Okay, okay.
And the dog has been removed, to our best understanding, it's not in the city limits. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Okay, all right, cool.
And
Thank you.
Camera, software, and
Okay.
tasers.
So I apologize for agenda a couple different times, but I wanted to make sure that I got the best numbers for everybody. So I've got a couple things to hand out here. And we literally worked on this all the way up until the very end of business on Friday. So if you want to take one of each of these stacks and just pass them down.
Yeah, coordination is not very good tonight.
And Ash and Dave and I went over all of this already.
We'll have every copy. We want to start on the one that's not highlighted. I mean, a lot of this is common sense, but I just want to make sure that we all understand the benefits of these cameras and why we need them. I think most importantly right now, liability cost is a big thing. We're one of the few departments in the area that does not have in-car cameras or body cameras. In today's day and age, if it's not recorded, it's oftentimes, not, it goes to court and they say, well, if it wasn't recorded, then how do we know it happened? And, you have to have it as evidence. It's pretty standard in today's day and age that if you go to court, after charging someone, you're gonna have some form of video evidence to show. When we get asked in court all the time by defense attorneys, where's your body camera? It's kind of, honestly, it's an embarrassing thing to have to say, we don't have it. And we're one of the few agencies that doesn't. It's obviously an officer safety and accountability thing. Not only does it keep the officers honest, keeps them within policy, because their actions are being recorded, but it's also a safety thing. There's been study after study that's been done where they show that when an officer wears a body camera and it's known that he's wearing a body camera, oftentimes the public is less likely to become physically, or you get in a physical confrontation with the officer. So it reduces injuries, things like that. And then just our efficiency, being able to go back and review things that are recorded when we're writing our reports, when we're doing all of our investigative work. We don't have to remember what was said. We can go back and watch the video and know exactly what's said. So those are kind of common sense, but I just want to make sure that we all understand that, these are really, in today's day and age, these are an essential tool for us to do our job. So any questions on that? Okay. So getting to the comparisons here, we did go over this. Me, Dick, and Ash had a meeting. We talked about all three of these proposals. I will say, and I've got them all here if anybody wants to see them. I will say that as far as the equipment goes, they're all very similar. Same amount of cameras. They're all 5-year contracts. Really, it's the nuts and bolts that are kind of different. It's the quality of the systems. It's little things, with the digital evidence systems that might be different from company to company. But they're all roughly the same packages. So Digital Ally is the first one on that list that you guys can see. We've actually had these cameras in the past. We did have in-car cameras previously. These were the cameras that we were using. There's a limited storage with those. You can see some of the pros and cons. I will say, just in my opinion, and also having used these cameras before, they're more affordable, but they're also the hardware is a little less quality, more prone to breakdown, things like that. Also, really the internal, the software and the evidence systems that they use are not very. They're not big. They're not used by a lot of agencies, so they don't have all the bells and whistles. As you can see there's the price in total, broken down in a 5-year structure. You can see the first year payment, and then from the following years on. The next one that we looked at that does these 5-year system, or these 5-year proposals, is Motorola. Obviously, much bigger company. That's who we use our radios through. Trusted. They're widely adopted. A lot of different agencies use them. They've got all the state-of-the-art technology. The one downside is their evidence system, their digital evidence solutions aren't as widely used, so they're not as familiar to a lot of courts and agencies and things like that. You can see the prices there for the same. And then Axon, which I know a lot of people don't know that name, but we've all heard of tasers. That's what Axon is now. It used to be called Taser International. Now it's Axon. The reason they actually made that change was because Taser went from making only tasers into also focusing on body cameras and in-car cameras, and they wanted that name to reflect. So they switched over to a different name, but it's the same company. This is probably the most widely used camera system in our area and really across the board nationwide. They're some of the best, and really where they shine is their digital evidence system is literally the gold standard. It's the one that all the other companies try to keep up with. And where that's important is when all this video gets recorded, it then has to go into that system. That's where we actually use it for court. So having a system that really works well and has all the bells and whistles is really going to help us. The additional to that I wanted to make sure we bring up in talking with the representative through Axon, he did bring up that there would be some cost sharing if we also purchased new tasers with them. He would give us a pretty good deal on both systems. That's something that that I was talking to Ash about every year when we have our list of things that we really need to upgrade. That's one of the things. So the tasers that we currently carry, I went through the academy first 19 years ago. These are the same tasers that they used back then. The technology is extremely old. The other thing about it is they stopped making the X26s in 2014. And they're rated for 5 years. The batteries are rated for 5 years. The cartridges are rated for 5 years. We can no longer purchase any of that because they don't make them anymore. So we're running on the supplies that we have. Once we're out of those additional batteries and cartridges, we'll be forced to upgrade. So this system would, or this proposal would actually get us the new tasers with the cameras that we need and the cartridges. He's also willing to send all 5 of us or all 4 of us if we want to instructor school to be taser certified so we can do our own instruction. Typically right now we pay someone else to do the training, so we'd be able to do it in-house. So there's a cost savings there. The other thing I want to mention about all 3 of these plans too, just to kind of drive it home, these in-car cameras, having those in the vehicle, that'll save our costs down the road when we buy vehicles. Usually that's something that we would budget. So you're looking at $5,000 to $6,000 for an in-car camera later on if we were purchasing a new vehicle. If we had a plan like this, obviously we wouldn't need to do that. So that is a savings that we're gonna have, looking down the road when we're purchasing new vehicles. We won't have to be looking for those cameras because we already have them. All 3 of these plans offer, they have different names for it, but they do a refresh program. So halfway through this 5-year plan, they will give us brand new body cameras. So they'll give us brand new ones on day 1. Halfway through, they'll give us new ones. And then at the end of that 5-year contract, they'll give us new in-car cameras. So we'll leave the contract with brand new equipment. So any questions on the 3 of them?
Thanks for putting it together.
Yeah,
good work.
Does the last one have a $2,500 installation as well?
No, they will actually send people out.
That's just what, yes.
Yeah.
And it's actually only increases at 2,800 to do both on the last one, from 10 to 12.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And the other thing with those tasers too is there's a refresh in there too. So 2.5 years into that plan, we get new tasers.
So, the mayor said you guys had talked with Ash.
Yep.
Now, generally, we take the lowest, so first 2. However, I want to kind of future-proof stuff, and if it's going to cost us more, which I get it, you got more on an installation fee and stuff on this one. If we went with option 3, Ash, you guys discussed that?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
With the tasers.
With the
included.
tasers. With the
I looked
tasers.
at it from the benefit that the chief mentioned that
Sure.
you're gonna get the
Well,
taser.
yeah, it's only $2,800.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't
so
you jump on that?
unlike you, I like to go with the lowest,
So
but in certain this,
but you also want to go with the one that can get the job done.
yes.
It's not always the lowest one because
You got.
you're gonna have some
most of the
issues
money.
probably with storage and stuff, and I'm
The-
sure they're good.
The biggest thing to point out about that first one, it's only 100 gigabytes of storage, which sounds like a lot,
It's not.
but a
I know
2-hour,
that.
a 2-hour video could be several gigs. And some of this evidence we have to keep for 15 years by federal standards. So by the time you get 15 years of evidence, you're looking at thousands of gigabytes. We even looked at server options. You're talking like 30, 40 grand just to build a server capable of keeping all this. So really, they're all shifting to this cloud-based systems, which makes sense. So if we went with that first proposal and we wanted to increase that storage, there's going to be a fee associated with that. Also, the first 2 companies, they will not do installation, but they also, because of that, they don't do any service. So like, for instance, when we get those new cameras in 2 years, if we need to install anything, we're going to have to pay again to have that done. Whereas Axon will take care of all that for us. It's kind of it's a full thing, a full benefit thing. They also, Axon offers the best replacement coverage. So if one of us, basically what he told me is, if in the performance of our duties, a camera's broken, they'll replace it. No questions asked. We tell them we need one, they'll send us one out. They said it's about a 2-day turnaround to get a new one. So what's the bid? I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to, just looking at it, I was sold on option 3, so and not to jump over you, but I'm gonna make a motion to accept option 3 with the tasers for the police, so. You can discuss it.
You got something to comment first?
Yeah, what's availability for this? Like, what was, if we pull the trigger on that tonight, like, when will you guys be suited up with all this?
I would say within the next, well, it's gonna be a question on how soon we can order them, because this is based on using next year's budget. Sometimes these companies will let us order sooner than later, and then bill us in July. So the goal is to try to order them as soon as we can, knowing that we're gonna pay in July.
Sure.
If they're willing to work with us and send them out early, great. Worst case scenario is we wouldn't be able to get them until July. But most of these companies, just from working with them in the past, even the ones that wanna wait till the last minute, if they know we're paying them in July, then they'll have them ready to go, so we'll have them right in July.
Perfect.
Awesome. Just one quick question.
Yeah, go crazy.
For the cameras, you said you get the new ones, obviously, when we pull the trigger, you get a refresh at 2.5, you also get a refresh at the 5-year mark?
With Axon, you do.
Okay, so you get 3 sets of cameras essentially.
Yeah, and that's where it's huge, because even if, I mean, obviously at 5 years, we could re-sign with them. Or if we don't like it, at least we have brand new cameras that are gonna last at least 5 years. So it would build some time before we had to start looking for another one. Obviously, my goal would be to continue on that relationship and just use this as for budgeting purposes, I think Ash agrees, it's way easier to do this on a yearly basis to know this is how much we're gonna spend, but we're getting brand new cameras. The oldest camera we'll ever have, the in-cars will be 5 years, the body cameras will be 2.5 years. The oldest tasers we'll ever have is 2.5 years, cartridges, 2.5 years, batteries, 2.5 years. So we'll always have up-to-date equipment, at least in those two areas.
And Dave, explain to them, when you arrest somebody, all the paperwork, and then you go up to court, you didn't have camera. I mean, you're talking hours and hours.
Yeah, sure, it definitely helps. Yeah, when a lot of people think that our job is just the 10 minutes that we're on scene, but it's really the 2-3 hours behind the scenes when we're writing reports and all that stuff. And if you have the ability to go back and look at your video, it's obviously important, so.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. You did a good job with me on this.
So we have moved in second.
Yes.
How do you vote? Patrick?
Absolutely.
Russell?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes.
Kavah?
Yes.
Morgan?
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Now we're at 16. Matt Funk?
Okay. Phase 4 housing development, Longwood 3. The lift station started and training is scheduled for 9 o'clock a.m. Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, hopefully. Mid-American Energy has cleanup work to be completed, such as fixing broken sidewalk panels, cleaning up the rock pile, fixing sump pump service lines, and surface restoration. Ardent Lighting has confirmed the installation of all the street lights. However, the completion of the electrical connections is pending due to damage to the underground conduit caused by Mid-American Energy. Forest is pursuing Mid-American Energy to address these items. All Saints Drive, there was 2 lights that needed to be, that got piggybacked onto this here. Both of them have been installed, but one is operational, and Stuart Municipal Utilities is going to get electricity to the one on the south side, or near the Northeast 2nd Street, when the ground thaws. And Forrest and I went out to Wombold. Forrest had been out there last week also, confirmed that the fence has been installed, but Forrest has a few questions he wants to go over with Macinich about that. So a couple of, I guess, details to work out with that. Midwest Speakers Toastmasters Leadership Program is going well. We're still pursuing people that would like to become members to focus on their speaking abilities and to help build confidence and to mold leaders in the community. I strongly urge anybody from the city council attend a meeting. Hopefully it'd be something you would like. And then the marketing, spoke with Nate Westry. Our content achieved an impressive 9.9 thousand views, 92.6% increase. It reach grew by 84.8%, expanding the visibility of Stuart's message within the community and beyond. Engagement improved with 25% increase. Link clicks surged 86.3%, and page visits rose by 87%. Our page gained another 8 followers. So strengthening, that goes on to show that strengthening our online community. These results highlight our continued success in meeting and exceeding the goal of bringing increased visibility to the Stuart. As we build on this momentum, we invite you to renew the marketing contract, which you already have. So I just appreciate the opportunity or to be up here in front of you to kind of go over some of these positive things that this has been bringing to the community. And thank you for your support. I also want to add that the 4th annual Women's Entrepreneurial Event, that's something that I started when I took on this position. Worked with the Small Business Development Center, and then we also recently were adding on the Hub 712. They want to participate in public planning on these. So we have the next Women's Entrepreneurial Event will be April 17th, and it's going to be at the newly opened Summit Grove venue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Good work.
Okay, 17. Problem Gambling Awareness Month proclamation. Okay, therefore, America do hereby proclaim the month of March 2025 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month in Stuart, Iowa. Encourage all citizens to support the National Council of Problem Gambling, Iowa Health and Human Services, Office of Problem Gambling Prevention Treatment Service, New Life, Iowa, and new opportunities in their effort to mitigate gambling-related harm nationwide.
Thanks, that's all.
Need a motion on it? No. Okay, now, public forum.
Everybody's got it.
So back to.
You want to come up to the microphone?
Not really, but.
That's why you're on camera, Kevin.
Back to Paige's thing.
Okay.
What was the whole deal there? Because there's no house on it. Do you guys have a problem with there not being a house on it now?
Code?
That's something on there.
There's a city ordinance.
An ordinance, yeah, I don't, a code ordinance, statute, whatever, it's kind of.
Just curious because
But yeah,
220 North Fremont across from me, the bank tore that house down, lot set bank it. There's a little garage in the back, but I mean, nothing's been done about that.
There is.
no, and I agree.
I'm just saying.
Totally agree, yes.
Pick on
Yeah.
one, pick
You
on
have
all.
a bunch of them.
And we have a code enforcer now, correct?
Yes.
Before that, it was supposed to be Jim. And then before that, it was me and Kay.
Max.
Before that, who?
Jerry Woodson did it.
Jerry Woodson.
Ed
Ed
Lee-
Leadham, yep.
Ed Leadham did it.
I guess I'm just curious why the house across me, 224, hasn't been picked on at all.
Well, I guess as far as the code enforcement, one time they talked about this piece of siding, this board, I said, I want out first, and that's what they're hitting on first.
Well, the one lady that her siding was dirty in January.
I know.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah,
that. I remember
yeah.
that.
There's a tarp on the roof.
But a lot of times. if-
And I'm not asking you guys to do anything now, I'm just
Right.
bringing up examples.
And we
If a
have
person
different,
wants to write a complaint, you can always do that, and then maybe they'll follow up on it, but, Harry's on his own now doing this and just started the 1st of February. I
and we
haven't
have
seen any
multiple
results.
abandoned houses too.
Yeah.
You know, And I don't know what's worse, having an abandoned house or grass that's 8 inches high,
Right,
you know?
right.
So,
And he's out there mowing the grass is kept up, but the house looks like hell, so.
no, I get it, yeah.
And that's what I mentioned earlier is, you know, at some point we need to just stop. What are we doing here?
Right.
You know, it seems like we're just going right to the vote. We're either gonna enforce the code or we let it slide. So figure out, you know, just, that's what the codes are for and the ordinances. And that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
I think Chief, Chief, did you have?
I was just gonna add real quick that the care center has a garage on an empty residential lot without a house as well. So, I mean, it's not uncommon.
Maybe that's something we have to visit.
Catholic church.
You know, but I don't, again, you know, we don't even know what exact code
Sure.
that VK was referencing, so that would
What's
have
the
been nice.
church got, Nick?
Huh?
What's the church got?
Shoot, that's what the church had.
Well, isn't there a garage there
Where?
near the gas plant?
That's in commercial. It's a,
But
it's
it's
their, it's a morning
Oh,
building.
Okay,
It's in commercial, it's not in residential.
okay. Anybody else have anything? I got a couple things. I got openings for historic preservation, planning and zoning, and the Dare landfill. And I've received numerous complaints about dog waste. The sign's up out the sports complex, it's at the cemetery. I walked up the new housing with my grandkids and I stayed on sidewalk. They kicked feces all over on the sidewalk. So I'm encouraged if people see walking dogs, make sure they're picking up. Nate's father was great with his lab, always had a bag with it. But some people just don't do that. Terrible, somebody walking in the cemetery and then going up to the church at the funeral. That's all I have. Anybody else have anything? Thank you. Long meeting. You got something to sign?
Yeah. You too.